Hello, Paula. How are
Andrea,
you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today. I'd like to introduce you. Paula is a coach and her business is called Freedom Thinking. And her passion is it to help women who are experiencing problems after giving birth that could even go in or lead into anxiety. So that's your specialty, isn't it, Paula?
Yeah, Post Natal Depression,
Yeah.
specifically, that can also, I'm generalizing here, but can also lead into after many years after and carry on with anxiety and depression afterwards.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's not just
So
the baby blues. It's not just blues.
Such an important field to work with women. Thank you for that. Yes. And today you agreed to be interviewed by me. Thank you so much on how you have been dealing with challenges that have presented themselves so far to you. So if I'd like to ask you, what challenge would you like to talk about with us today?
Sure. So I'll start from the beginning.
That's a good place to start.
And I'll bring it in as close so people can understand exactly the challenge that I went through, because it's a twofold challenge that I've been through. So I was unable to have a child for 10 years, and that led on to the postnatal depression. So I went through IVF, and it's very stressful. There's a lot of associated stress with that, in my relationship with other people, not understanding where, they wanted me to have a child, family wanted me to have a child, and it wasn't happening. On top of that, there was a lot of stress that I was placing on myself over a period of time, because women, if they want to, we're meant to have children. It's innate in us. And when it doesn't happen, I was putting a lot of pressure on myself that why isn't this happening? So it was one on top of the other challenge, that when I finally did get pregnant, I was really happy. I was I was over the moon, because I finally got my dream.
Yeah.
I had a lot of problems throughout my pregnancy. And then as soon as the baby was born, as soon as Johnny was born, I had even more problems after the birth. So that sort of, again, it was another thing on top of the other.
Wow.
So, so there was a lot of stress. A lot of my thoughts were, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to be a mother. Yeah. All of that sort of thing.
Thank you very much. That was my next question. How did the self-talk look like that you had happening in your head when you were going through all of that? Because really, it's not one challenge. It's like you say, one thing after the other.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, because I do normally focus on women who are being manipulated in relationships, but I think it's so important to talk about challenges we're facing all the time. It's not only one thing. Challenges can present themselves in so many ways. And thank you so much for sharing what you have been going through, first of all, to become pregnant, and then what has happened from there on.
Yeah, look, it was a challenge. The IVF challenge sort of dissipated after that. Then it was my mind. It was the voice in my head telling me that I'm not good enough. I'm not meant to be a mother. I'm trying to think, because it's basically, I'm not good enough.
Wow.
that's what the voice in my head was telling me. I'm not good enough. Yet at the same time, I could look after the baby.
Yes. So that's the next thing. How do you deal with the voice in your head telling yourself you're not good enough? Because this is massive. This is influencing your identity, your whole being. It's not just something you can tuck away in a split second. It's something that stays with you. So how did you go about battling this inner voice of not being good enough? Did you manage to overcome that by yourself?
No. Initially, I was on antidepressants because it was something that I really needed.
Yeah.
I was very secretive. Nobody knew that there was anything wrong with me. Women with postnatal depression, talking from personal experience, are very secretive.
And may I ask why this is? What fear presents itself in this instant? Why is it that you are being secretive about it? There must be some fear underlying.
I felt I was broken, like I was completely broken, that I couldn't share any of my thoughts. For me, it was, if I shared my thoughts, they would take the baby away from me.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is huge.
Yeah, it was huge. Wow. Because the thoughts were pretty horrible. I had very, very bad thoughts in my mind.
Oh, and I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. It was very, very, very scary for me. And I didn't know, and perhaps a lot of other women can relate to this too, that are perhaps going through this right now. I couldn't express myself. I didn't know how to. I was afraid to speak. There was no words that I could say that would, and nobody could say anything to me that would make it better, because everything was in here.
Yes.
There was nothing that anybody could say to me.
So where do you think this fear came from? Do you think, would you say, now being a coach, would you say it really came from only what you were telling yourself, from your mindset?
It was definitely my mindset.
Yeah.
Definitely. I didn't know anything different. You don't know what you don't know. And when you don't know what you don't know what to do about it. So I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. And there was, and even though, you know, people were wanting to help me, family were wanting to help me, but everything they said, I made meaning of it. I made a different meaning of it.
Yeah.
So
it's sort of, sorry to interrupt you, but sort of relates also to women who are stuck in unhealthy relationships.
Yes.
Because very often they are being told or offered help, and they are not grasping it either.
It is actually also human nature. It's very, very much human nature that we don't like to be told.
Yeah.
We want to work it out for ourselves. But when you can't work it out for yourself, you'll stay stuck where you are. So that was my position.
Yes.
And
I can totally relate to that, because when I was stuck in my marriage, I also thought I had to deal with it by myself. And you're right, I didn't talk about it either. So it's a very similar situation.
You become very secretive. I became very, very secretive.
Yeah. And so what had to happen for you to get out of this situation, to get out of this negative mindset that you are not worth anything and being secretive? What was a trigger that needed to happen for you to turning the situation around, or did it come slowly?
It was to the point where I couldn't handle being around myself.
Oh, interesting.
I have this saying that you're only with yourself. You're with yourself 24 hours a day. And you've got to love being around yourself.
Yes.
And it got to the point that I couldn't handle being around myself.
Wow.
My thoughts were so toxic. I was so into myself. I had such a victim mindset that I didn't. And there was also a lot of pride and a lot of ego there too, that, you know, I want to do this myself.
Yes.
You know, and there was a lot of anger.
Isn't it interesting that the ego that is trying to protect us, I mean, its function is really to protect us, but can be so counter productive in keeping us stuck?
Yes, it was keeping me very stuck. There's also the pride. I am a mother.
Yeah.
This is my child. Nobody can tell me what to do or how to get through this. And I'm not going to tell you what I'm going through, because you're not going to understand.
Yes, the relatability.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was no relatability with anybody else. So there was, to answer your question, the point where I was triggered to really get help was when I in 2010, when I started my own personal development journey. And I realized then that there was a defining moment, actually, and I just remembered it now.
Wow.
My son was 4 years old.
Okay.
He was at kindy. And he was on the jungle gym. And I was recording him. And I recorded my voice at the same time. And when I heard it back, the way that I was talking to my child was horrible.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, why am I talking to my child like this?
Wow.
What is wrong with me? And then that's when that was the trigger. It was sort of building up, but I didn't have any awareness. I didn't have any insight. I had nothing. There was nothing there. No, like, I was completely oblivious to the fact there was anything wrong with me.
Yeah.
You know, I knew there was, but I didn't know what it was. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. I wouldn't, but it's interesting that we always ask ourselves, what's wrong with me? But in fact, it's not really that there is something wrong with us. It's just that we have dug a big hole. We've dug a big hole for ourselves where we sort of couldn't climb out of anymore. Because I don't like that term, what's wrong with me. I know we keep telling ourselves, but I think it really is that, we dug ourselves a big hole that we, with the side walls so slippery that we couldn't get out anymore. So when you had that realization, you sort of created the first step where you could hold on to climb out of.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what happens to me. And then I sought out, when I started my course in 2010, I sought out my first coach.
Sorry, I got the door here. What did you
I sought out my first coach.
Your first coach.
And he changed my whole life.
Wow, amazing.
He, like, Andrea, it was the first time in my entire life that there was somebody that understood me for me and accepted me for me, because I couldn't accept me for me.
Yes, yes.
So he did that for me. So he was my champion. He championed me with everything. There was nothing that, he championed me continuously. It was like if I had any doubts, he would bring up the doubts for me, and he would squash them completely, right?
Amazing.
Like, and he would tell me off. He could be very harsh with me sometimes. But Andrea, I needed that.
I was about to say, that's what coaches are doing, isn't it? We're not here to be kind to our clients, because if we only kind, we keep them where they are now.
That's right.
We have to give them a kick in the butt every now and then to really move them forward.
If I could, can I use a bit of a swear word? Is it okay?
It's totally okay with me, and I think for our viewers as well.
He let me sit in my shit.
Wow. Yeah.
So after every session, there would be 2 or 3 days afterwards where I was peeling off the layers bit by bit over time, because it needed to happen. It was important, and I wanted it, because I couldn't handle being around myself.
Being you.
I couldn't handle it. And so I couldn't accept myself. So it got to beyond the depression at that time. Do you know what I mean? That's why I talk about that. Anxiety, postnatal depression gets beyond that.
So may I ask you at what point you were able to stop taking the antidepressants?
Well, that's an interesting question.
Yes.
So I had to make a lot of lifestyle changes. Before I could actually come off. And for me personally, it was, I ate healthy, I exercised a lot, and it got to the point where my mind was in a better place. So that's when I knew I could come off.
Amazing. I'd like to congratulate you and acknowledge you for coming off the antidepressants, because how many people are too scared to even notch them back slowly to eventually come off them, because they think it's the all magical pill. That
I can speak to that. I can definitely speak to that, because what I found is that I was using the antidepressants and there is nothing wrong with taking them. I want to make that, because they actually helped me. Right? I am a total advocate for them.
At a certain stage.
There was a time though when I was using them because I couldn't deal with situations. So I stayed on them and I was using them for my own mindset, because I couldn't cope with what was going on. You know, in my mind and everything that was external.
That was in the beginning.
In the beginning.
And so when did you notice, or how did you go about, because I can imagine you wouldn't have just stopped taking them from one day to the other. You would have slowly phased them out, or no?
Actually, I don't advocate this at all. And please, for anybody that is listening to this, please do not do this. I came off cold turkey. All right. So please do not do this.
No, we don't want to
very dangerous.
Advocate for that.
I don't want to advocate.
But I'm impressed. I'm impressed anyway.
It was very highly dangerous. And I could have ended up in hospital.
Yeah.
Nobody knew I did it.
Yeah.
I stood in front of, it was at the point in my journey, because I now call it a journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm actually, well, how can I say, I'm actually proud that I went through that, because it's made me the woman that I am now.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes, I agree.
What I did was I stood in front of my husband, and it was at the point where I had had enough, and I grabbed the script and I tore it up in front of him, chucked it in the bin, and I said to him, I'm coming off these things right now.
Yeah.
And that was a defining moment.
Absolutely.
And we all have defining moments, and that was the biggest defining moment in my entire journey.
I can imagine. And may I ask you, Paula, at that time, you had already been working with your coach for a while, or was it before?
No, it was, I had been working with him for a while.
You had been, so in a way, you had started to shift your mindset, and that's what I would have expected you to say, because you would have had to change something about your mindset already to have the strength to say, this is it. I'm done with that. I don't want to take that any longer. So you were already rebuilding your identity.
That's right. That's right.
Amazing. Thank you. Wow.
Johnny was 8 years old at the time.
Yeah.
He was very young. He was very little, and still and it was not pleasant.
No, I can imagine. Yeah.
Pleasant.
Yeah. Because you would have had withdrawal symptoms, surely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow, I admire you, Paula. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Pleasure.
This is gold. But like we said, not to advise anybody to go cold turkey.
No, don't do it, please.
But I would advise people to try and slowly get off antidepressants, because
with
really
your doctor.
Yes, with your doctor, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think the goal would be to come off and work with somebody, a therapist, a coach, a doctor, whoever it may be, to re-establish your mindset to a healthy one again, which includes identity, shift, everything.
If I can add a little thing to that, there are some people that need to stay on it, and that is perfectly okay too.
Yeah.
Right. The only time that I don't believe that people should stay on it is to use it as a crux, because you can't deal with what is happening in your life. It's not a band-aid. Antidepressants are not to be used as a band-aid solution.
Yes.
It's important to be able to deal with our problems as they come up.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that clarification. And so thank you so much for sharing that story with us. That's really amazing. And thank you for being so vulnerable. If you were to give one advice to somebody facing a challenge at the moment, what would that be?
Stop suffering.
Yay. I love it.
Seriously, stop suffering.
Yes.
Why are you putting yourself through all of this when there's help out there?
Yeah.
Stop suffering. Stop making yourself a victim.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. Decision. It's a decision that you make.
Yes.
And people, look, if I had someone like me when I was going through my postnatal depression, that had been through postnatal depression and had overcome it, I would have gone to that person back then.
Yes.
But there was nothing. And there is still nothing. There's a huge gap. There's a huge gap.
Yes. I agree. So I'm so grateful for having this interview with you, Paula, and for creating awareness for all the women suffering, for them to realize that there is support, there are people who made it their passion and their mission to actually help them get through this a lot quicker and less painful than if they had to face that all by themselves.
You can't face it on your own.
No.
You cannot get through on your own. You need support.
Absolutely.
This is not something that you can get through on your own.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Paula. That was so valuable. Mwah.
Mwah.
Sending you lots of love. Thank you so much. So much.